Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here, this 29th GeneXus meeting. It is an honor and a pleasure to welcome you here for 3 days. I would like to thank all the speakers, over 170 speakers from 12 countries who are accompanying us. Good morning, Gisela. Gustavo, good morning. We would like to welcome delegations from over 30 countries. Some of them come from very remote countries such as China, Japan, Finland, Australia. Thanks to my work, I've been able to know their realities and to know what they live in. And the common ground for all those places that I visit, all the customers that I visit, is that they all need to develop very complex software to respond to their business needs. And in fact, software has invaded the world. It's a reality that we are all very well aware of. The question is how to give answers to those questions. Well, what Gisela is saying is what we are seeing from our GeneXus community. And this is what made us create this slogan, builders. If there is a feature of the GeneXus community, is to be builders, to develop solutions that change people's lives and change the way we do business. The goal of our meetings is to develop the skills of different people. What are we going to find in this meeting? Well, the contents are in line or around 3 large goals: design, technology, and processes. As regards processes, or as regards design, well, design's at the highest level from the user standpoint, or an idea, an implementation plan. Technology refers us to what technology is going to be used for that design, what technology we're going to use to carry out that solution. And as far as processes are concerned, how are we going to carry it out on the basis of that technology? This is a spinner that is spinning on itself. And that's what our event is based on. How can you take advantage of all the activities? Well, our activities are similar to the ones we had in previous events. Many of them are going to be run in parallel. We've got one called State of the Art, and that has to do with a certain technology or a certain problem, iOS, Apple, web, any platform. The other thing is Coffees.com. That is the possibility of acting with the research and development team, about processes. We've got web generators, coffee.coms, and so on. And then what we have, last but not least, is labs. Labs is the chance that participants to this event have to interact directly with our technology. They are guided by a group of experts, and you can interact and you can feel it, you can touch it. But basically, all this is in the apps, the GX29, that you can download from the store and make your own agenda. And one further activity, you'll be able to share experiences with different colleagues who have lived through these problems and have found problems to software development. I would specifically like to share with you a Mexican case where they have developed an interesting solution. It's better, rather than telling you what it was about, I'm going to give the floor to Ruben so he can tell you about the case in Mexico.
La tecnología ha cambiado los negocios de miles de compañías en el
Technology has changed the technology in many parts of the world. That's the case of WEC in Mexico.
Almacenaje y custodia de mercancías de comercio exterior, con sede en la aduana del Aeropuerto Internacional de la Ciudad de México.
En WEC hemos logrado convertirnos en apenas 4 años en la empresa líder del mercado, gracias a la implementación de ideas innovadoras basadas en el uso de la tecnología.
Comenzamos operaciones con un sistema arrendado. Rápidamente nos dimos cuenta de las limitaciones de este sistema y de las dificultades para la innovación. Intentamos desarrollar nuestro propio sistema en .NET con el ciclo de desarrollo clásico. Después de varios intentos fallidos, desistimos con un alto nivel de frustración.
Fue a través de una de las empresas del grupo que conocimos la plataforma. Con cierto escepticismo, comenzamos a desarrollar el sistema en GeneXus con el apoyo de 2 desarrolladores. A medida que avanzaba el proyecto, nos sorprendíamos de que no siguiese el proceso habitual del desarrollo y que las iteraciones fuesen mucho más cortas.
El día de la implementación, tuvimos el primer problema a las 2 horas de arranque en producción. La gran diferencia es que a los 7 minutos corregimos el problema y ya no regresamos al sistema arrendado.
A partir de esa implementación, los clientes comenzaron a pedir desarrollos de funcionalidades adicionales con plazos muy cortos, lo que se terminó convirtiendo en una ventaja competitiva fundamental para nuestra empresa, que estaba posicionándose en el segmento. 4 años después, WEG lidera la lista de los 18 almacenes existentes, destacándose por su capacidad de brindar servicios en base a un equipo humano, solvente y comprometido, y a una plataforma tecnológica que potencia enormemente esas capacidades. WEG es el único.
WEC is the only warehouse that operates with electronic devices and is the only one that has for 2 years a mobile application where customers can manage their movements. All this has made WEC the best and fastest store in the implementation of business solutions. More than 130,000 monthly operations processed within the WEC management are supported in systems developed with GeneXus. GeneXus allowed us to become industry leaders. It is the ideal tool for the ideal team. WEC, World Express Cargo.
Buenos días, amigos.
Good morning, my friends. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for coming. One of the roles that I focus on is to look outside, to see what's happening out there. So my keynote is going to be based on something that I would like to share with you. It's 3 things that I think are very important, and I think that can help you and can help the community a lot. The first one has to do with organizations. I'm lucky to travel a lot, and I'm in contact with many GeneXus customers, but I'm also lucky because I'm in contact with other organizations that are not from the GeneXus environment. And so I've got that feeling about what's happening. And there is something that is quite interesting that has been there, and I've been hearing about it. All companies know that they have to move into a digital transformation. So far, no one has defined how to do it. What can we do? And there are 2 feelings there. One is that there are organizations that are somehow afraid, and they think this is something bad that's happening, this is something that is going to complicate our lives, that is not going to be good for us. Usually that ends up in a sort of discussion whether this is fair or unfair. Is it fair what's happening to us, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, there are other organizations that feel, well, I'm losing something, I'm missing something, I'm leaving money on the table. I feel that if I could do things better, if I could use technology better, or I could move in relation to my competitors, or so on and so on and so forth. Well, whatever the type of rationale, any of these 2 things take you to inaction, and people don't know what to do. They are stagnated. And that's what I wanted to share with you. One of the functions that is changing and has been changing in the past 2 years is that usually we were hired, they would tell us, well, you know, someone would tell us what to do, and we had to program what someone said what we had to do. Now, the change is that we are now being hired to do something else, or at least we are being asked something else. And we are asked, what is it that we have to do? What has to be done? The doubt of many of our organizations is, what is it that's got to be done? And we've been working with Tal's lab in corporate innovation. corporate innovation is precisely that. What can we do? What's the process whereby we have to determine what has to be done? For instance, many people ask me, what must I do in this organization? And my answer is always the same. I have no clue. I'm not in your organization. I don't know. I can't tell you. But although I don't know what, I know how. And I know that how is answered by experimenting. I don't think that anyone knows, not me, and no one, what to do. But you have to experiment that question of corporate innovation, and that's what we've been working on in Tal's lab. We've also been working on startups. There are several talks by Silvia Cevi in Tal's lab, and I recommend that you should attend them just to know what technology, what methodology we've been using, and also that you go into the topic, because I think that's a role that each one of us will have to play. That's what we'll have to do. So when I'm asked what we've got to do, I always say two things. One is corporate innovation, experimenting, doing, making experiments, and it's a function that we've got with GeneXus is fundamental. We've always had it, but at present it's a very important function, and that's prototyping. To be able to determine whether the experiment is good or bad, I have to make experiments, I have to make prototypes with GeneXus and see whether that prototype is interesting or not. And if it's not, I discard it. And my other answer is what we've got to look constantly is the startups. I mean, what are the startups in the area that are becoming successful, and it's reasonable to make some kind of agreement or purchase even. Among the Tal's Lab startups, there is one called Okaratech. That's entered into a very important biotechnology company. It's called Bioceres. Its technology, they've got a gene that is drought resistant for soybean. Now, Bioceres understood that to sell high technology, it also needs a digital component. A seed is no longer sold as it used to be sold, and so it's taken up the experience, it's developed in the digital area, and they enter into an agreement. So those are two things that you can do in organization, is corporate innovation or look at startups. That's the first thing I wanted to share with you. The second one has to do with market. Now, that's the market where GeneXus moves around. Our product is over 30 years old. What is interesting is that we haven't been in one single category. All products are in a certain category, but the interesting thing is that has changed along the time. We've had different categories. Sometimes we didn't even have categories. So what I want to tell you is that when we started, we had a category that was called CASE, Computer-Aided Software Engineering. It's a name that I still like. And that category had many competitors. I recall one, and I respect it, and it was called Sina. It was the green screens. Along the time, the category disappeared, and then there was another one called RAD, Rapid Application Development, also with new competitors, where we were in that category. And once again, as with CASE, it started thinning out, fading away, and it disappeared. That the new thing is, in the past 2 years, once again that category was recreated. It's as if it was the same category with a different name, and it's called low code. And here I've got two things I'd like to share with you. Why is it that they died out? Why is it that this same category changes name? There is a very clear reason. It's because competitors disappear. And the question is, the only product that stayed on in these three, it's us. Why did our competitors disappear? Well, because of just one word, because they weren't feature-proof. They were not able to adapt to the future. So as the competitor I mentioned, it was very good, but it was good in green screens when we used green screens. When we started using window screens or web, they couldn't take that step forward. They couldn't move from one step to the other. Now, why could we do it? Well, one of the reasons, it's because we are concerned with that issue. We're always concerned about the next technological wave. Now, the second effect for us, very specific impact, in fact, is that for the past 2 years, we've been analyzed by large market analysts like Gartner and Forrester in a process which takes place once a year, roughly, and it takes about 3-4 months of a big team from us discussing and presenting things to analysts constantly. And what I'd like to tell you is that after a certain experience there, what have analysts said about us? Let me tell you what they said that was good and what was bad. Let's see what they said was good. What the analysts said, it was good. Now, the first thing they said is that we are the product that has the best theoretical basis. What lies behind is the strongest theory. There is no competitor with that theoretical level. And I think that's the explanation why we've been future-proof. Because technology changes, but technological ideas have remained constant. Why? Because the theory we have behind it has been future-proof. The second concept is that we are the ones covering more technologies. There is no other competitor in the world that can generate for so many things, for so many different databases, so many languages, so many different types of clouds, so many different types of mobiles. No one has that broad scope. And the third thing they say is that we have the best business model. And when they refer to the best business model is that we don't charge per runtime. We've made the decision not to collect, not to charge for the generated code. You can use it. You don't have to tell us what you're using it for. Most competitors follow the opposite model. They charge for runtime, and so you have to inform them what you're using the code for, and you have to pay them. So those are the three good things that they've said about us. Now, let me tell you what they've said that was bad about us. To say it very clearly, and let me say it expressly, as Forrester said, he said, GeneXus is the best low-code platform you've never heard of. I go on reading this once and again, and I don't know whether this is a praise or an insult. I don't know it until now. It's the first time I'm being applauded for something bad. Well, as I said, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with the good things and with the bad things they said about us? And this is what we are doing. In the first place, the first thing is we have always followed the idea of having alliances, of making alliances with the big world players, Microsoft, IBM, Amazon. And lastly, we've worked with SAP, and in 2 weeks ago, we got a new agreement with SAP, co-innovating with SAP. They've approved the entire process that we are using with AI technologies to use them with GeneXus. That's one of the points. And it's going to be used for what I said, for co-innovation. Where is our value? The idea of, or the possibility of making quick prototypes, that is looking for alliances. That's the first thing. The second thing for us, the important thing is to make a good GeneXus. It's not to become more known or better known. We believe that we are future-proof because every day we focus on making a better product. That's what we focus on. That's our strong part. And in order to be better known in the world, one of the things that we've done is to publish GeneXus courses in online world academies. Last week, GeneXus course was approved in Udemy. anyone in Udemy can make a GeneXus course. I think Gisela said it was approved on Friday, and this morning we already had 600 people enrolling. And so we think that one of the ways of being known is through the product and through the content. So that's what I had to tell you about the market. Now, let me tell you now about the third leg of what I told you was happening now, and it's a question of technology. This is a technology company, and I think that each one of us working in technology has to be aware of what's going on in technology. This year, something that's called my attention a lot, but to tell you about this, let me share with you an anecdote that happened a long time ago. I think it was the second or third GeneXus meeting. Some weeks earlier, I had attended a conference in Las Vegas, and when I came back, the topic of my talk was that Intel had announced a new processor called Pentium that was much faster, because in fact it was solving a problem we had. We were using GeneXus more and more, and the limit was the number of lines per code that we could generate. Since we couldn't generate a lot, that processor was very good. In fact, once Pentium was released, we could work much better in the question of lines per minute. And I'm telling you this because that was the last time I recall that I talked about hardware. Then I never again was interested in hardware. During all this time, hardware was something good that was happening to me. Every year, it was something better, it was cheaper, but it wasn't something that I was concerned about. I wasn't concerned about hardware until this year. This year, as it happened then, it was another event. I attended an event with Gaston about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and something quite interesting happened to me. It's not that it happened in the event, it's that when I went back to my hotel room, I had my Amazon purchases that had been delivered to my room, and these were the things that I had bought. That's the photo. I had bought many other things, but I couldn't put them in the hotel. You know, stereo cops, cameras, memories, cards to process neurons. I don't know. After a long time, I was becoming interested in this. The hardware was something that I was interested in. Now the question is why? From Pentium until now, I'm interested in this. Well, the answer is 2 words. It's called edge computing. I think that you are going to be seeing this quite often from now onwards. And this refers to the next generation of the Internet of Things. The first thing about the Internet of Things is we had sensors, and those sensors would send it to a cloud, to a central place. In that central place, they were recorded and decisions were made. That was the first generation. When we talk about edge computing, is that since data are generated at the edge, at the border where the sensors are, why don't we make data generated in the sensors are also processed there? Why don't we only send them up to the cloud? They are processed there. And that's what we do. That's what it means. That's edge computing. And that's evolving on a daily basis. And it's caught the attention, at least my attention. Now, one further thought about this. If you think about it, this is like a pendulum. All of us working in this profession, after a certain time, we have the idea that this is a pendulum. We were doing something that was decentralized. We moved to something centralized. Now we're moving back and to something that is centralized. So we have this pendulum swinging. But I think that analogy is wrong. It's not a very good one, because it is said in a sarcastic way, because what it refers to is don't move a lot, don't move too much, because at a certain point in time, the pendulum is going to swing back to where you were. And I think that's bad. I think that our profession isn't a pendulum. We're not in a pendulum, but we are in this snail type of staircase. If we see it from the top, it's true, we go back to the same place. But if we see it from the side, we are much higher, many floors up. We are building incredible things that we had never thought we were going to be able to build them, and that's what's happening. So I focused a lot on edge computer. We are builders, and I wanted to invite Carlos, speaker Carlos Pecker is also a builder. Thank you. How are you? Thank you. You've come in the company of someone. Yes, this is Max Mac. Let me stop it a little bit. Yes. Well, this is an autonomous wheelbarrow. It's not connected to any connection and nothing. Well, it was following me autonomously. And how could it follow you autonomously? Well, it's got several sensors. Some of those you showed in your photograph, in your slide. Well, that one was bought by Laura, right? Okay. It has a stereoscopic camera with many sonars. They are all connected, and all sensors are connected to ROS, robot operating system. Many algorithms are executed there. They were designed by our team to, well, behave in the way we wanted to behave. You said camera and slide. Well, with autonomous vehicles, there's a whole discussion. What is it better? That's the camera, reliable. Well, what do you say? Well, the important thing is the application and what you need. What we've learned is that the fundamental thing is the fusion of sensors and the function of sensors, and each sensor has its own specific ability where it is strong. So the best result is obtained from the fusion. You sent me a photograph. Oh, what's going to be used? Yes, there. Well, in the photograph, you can see we are using it in a greenhouse of hydroponic crops, and it loads all these boxes from one side to the other. And it has to be very precise. Apart from the predetermined roads, like the aisles, it has to overcome obstacles that it may find on its way. Let's see the video that you sent me. What's it doing? Well, it's going to follow a marker that we're going to see at the end, and it's navigating, it's surfing very specifically through the objects, the obstacles that we set up. It's very accurate, as you can see. Well, that's the biggest challenge. Well, you were doing some advertising of Blanca Nube, that's a brand of milk, and it goes up to the end. That's the process. That's the end of the process. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all. I'm going to ask Gaston Milano to come up. All right. There you go.
Bueno.
So, while our friend leaves, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. And as Gustavo said, as well as Giselle at the beginning, in this meeting we are going to have many presentations and activities around technology. What I brought today, what I wanted to discuss with you, focuses on two topics that you're going to hear a lot about these 3 days. Firstly, what our users are expecting from us, what kind of applications they want us to build, what kind of channels. And on the other hand, how we have to get ready for companies and what are the technologies that are required in order to fulfill the requirements of our users. Now, with regard to what users are seeing, what we have now is a continuation of what started some time ago. We have gone from the single experiences that we had been building experiences for our users who are consuming our system behind a screen, a text screen or a window screen or a web screen, that is to say, a single experience. But this is over. We have gone from there in any system, in other domain where we have to build something. We have gone to multiple experiences. That is to say, we have to pay attention to several channels. What are those channels? The first one is obviously and unarguably the web. That is what we have to attack in any system we build. The web technology is the one that allows us to reach our users. And the second channel is the apps, usually native apps in various contexts. There are debates in various technological contexts, but after the web, we have to have native apps. And in our GeneXus environment, we don't discuss this. Why? Because what's behind this discussion in general is a question of costs. And rather than costs, it's even a question of skills, what our programmers need to know. And since many times we don't have that team, then I prefer the world to go in a different direction. But what is clear is that the web is there to reach all of our users. It has evolved and will continue evolving, and apps, usually native, allow me to be the cherry on top of the cake for some kind of users and for certain skills that our native apps have to have. In our experiences, we make native applications. Now, when we build experiences around this event with regard to technology, that is the way we went. Firstly, we made a web coverage, and probably right now there are many people who are looking at the streaming through a desktop or a notebook, this conference. But then what we did some time ago was to say, well, we need a native apps experience in the event without any connection of online, etc., showing the program and other features. And this we did with a GeneXus knowledge base that is available for all of you. Why is it available? Well, because we really wanted to show the level of applications and the experiences we could make with GeneXus. And this knowledge base is available for you all. And it creates native applications for Android and for iOS. This year, we said, well, since we made such a good experience because we had the SD panels, for example, that show how to make the interfaces for native, we said, well, since it's ready for native, why don't we make, without touching a code line, a web application with those panels? And that's what we did with our Angular generator. That same knowledge base that it's available to you with the Angular generator without touching a code line, we generated an Angular application. And for those of you who are not familiar with Angular, well, in a few words, it's a JavaScript framework for web applications. And it's not the only framework that exists. Angular is a very popular framework with regard to enterprise applications. It's popular there, but there are other frameworks like React. React is very popular among developers. Right now, it's the most popular one with regard to the number of developers that use it. And then we have Vue. Vue was created by a former Googler who made an open source project. It is being used in China and nowadays is the most popular. So we are creating not only in Angular but also in React that is close to Angular, and then we will be working in Vue. Now, why were these frameworks born? One of the most important reasons was in order to attract the development of components to the web. In the web, we used to design pages, and then we realized that we wanted to have components in the pages. And each of these components brought a model of components to the web, the React component, the Angular Direct, the Vue component. So the web components are not those of GeneXus. Each one of them brought its components model. And you know who won the model, who won on how to make components in the web? Well, none of them. How is the web componentized is with the HTML web component. It was a standard that was coming in parallel, and among the most popular browsers, this was the favored one. This is the one they adopted. And when a standard is adopted by a majority, well, it is unavoidable. And nowadays, it is the direction in which most frameworks should go, using HTML web components. So you are going to see news from various companies that adopt web components, and you will see that more and more web components are made, and not specific components for one of the frameworks. In this conference that Nicolás mentioned, which was a Gartner conference, the frameworks were mentioned, and I will summarize. You are going to choose a framework. Look at the framework that is going towards web components. And actually, these frameworks don't have much left. So why should we continue using frameworks? For two reasons. Firstly, because there's a lot of tuning around these development frameworks, and that's not very important for this community because usually GeneXus does it automatically. But what we are interested in, and what this community is interested in, is that the frameworks worked a lot in JavaScript, for example, and in performance. Actually, our generator, the generator I mentioned for Angular, with which we have created the application for this event, can be seen in this site, angular.genexus.com. There you can see the status of this application that is being created automatically without touching a code line. These frameworks provide performance. In the design of the generator, there are two important things we did. Firstly, and something that was not very obvious. When the web team came some time ago and told me that they were not going to use the components from in any of these frameworks, they were going to use web components, I was skeptical about this decision. But since it was an educated guess, I decided to go along with the team. And an important thing was that the web team was right. Using the web components, each one of the generators reused the componentization. So the generators were right in their bet. And secondly, we had clear design guidelines that had to give priority to accessibility, to performance, and best practices, and the applications should be progressive and isomorphic. They would be used by the client and by the server. So this is something that we are succeeding in doing right now, and we are going to continue evolving in that direction. So to sum up, these are the two most important channels: the web with this evolution around the framework, and the native applications. But the multiple experience is not limited to this. There are other channels. Voice and text have become other sources of interaction with technology. And today I wanted to tell you about two channels that are extremely relevant in my opinion. The first one you may not know, it's called BAT, and the other one you all know, WhatsApp. So let's start with BAT. What does BAT mean? That's the acronym for three big Chinese companies, Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. And I'm going to tell you about each one. Baidu mini programs, Alipay mini programs, WeChat mini programs. So the important feature in the three of them is mini programs. And I'll tell you quickly about mini programs, although Sebastian Gomez is going to talk more about it. Mini programs is a new way of interacting. Everything started with Tencent and WeChat. Imagine that WeChat is an equivalent to WhatsApp in this region. WeChat had chats, but at a certain point they started including Uber and Instagram inside WeChat. Anything you can imagine can be done from WeChat. In China, they don't use the browser, they use WeChat. And inside WeChat, well, they said we have all these features. We are actually a platform and we can program. And therefore, we are going to invent a new language to program so that people can program inside us. And they call these mini programs. And the difference with a native application or a web application is that usually they are contextual. Imagine that I come here with my WhatsApp in China, WeChat, to this event. I come in and I receive a notice in the application that says there is a mini program for you. I get into the mini program and I start seeing the presentations, etc. And when I go home, this disappears and does not remain in my device. And therefore, it's contextual. Same thing in a shopping mall. There are more than 2 million mini programs at the moment. It was a success, and then WeChat said, well, this is our platform. But Alibaba then said, well, I want Alipay to be our platform. And then Baidu, which is Google in China, said, well, I want to have my own platform. So they invented different languages in order to program inside each one of these applications. So it's not HTML, but it's similar. And actually, what Luciano has been doing in China is it's been analyzing things and saying mini programs are eating China. And these are three applications that are running in Baidu. One is GeneXus, the other one in Alipay, and the other one in WeChat. But we are more interested in the Western world about WhatsApp. It's extremely relevant because of what I just told you. It's a candidate to become WeChat. But besides that, WhatsApp started a very important movement for us as a platform. It is used not only for chats, but 1 year ago they said they were going to have another APIs, and this year it allows the platform and the APIs to be programmable. So this attracts our attention, and therefore we have added to our chatbot generator the possibility of it being deployed in WhatsApp. And since we are builders, we wanted this to have an assistant. It's Rudy, which can reply through WhatsApp. It used to do it through the web and the native applications, but now it can be consulted through WhatsApp. So this is the phone number and the word code. The number is going to be around these days, so don't worry about it. So this multi-channel experience or this multiple experience are going to continue expanding. I think that this is a point of no return. Now, in order to build experiences, we need designers. The developers team in general, we don't build experiences. We cooperate, but we are not the ones who build the UX design. For this, we need designers who rarely use GeneXus, and this is what the UX experience realized some time ago, and they said, well, the web components are important feature, but now the designers are using Sketch, which caused a revolution in the world of designers through Adobe. So we decided to go very quickly from a design made by designers to GeneXus in runtime. We had it and we had released the Sketch in mobile. Now we are releasing the Sketch to web. So this is the what we expect to happen in the world of users. From the point of view of enterprises, I'm going to use very briefly things that seem relevant to me. Firstly, if we are going from the world of enterprises to a different world, we are not going to continue building systems just for our company. We need to build systems that are immersed in an ecosystem, in a government ecosystem that has to interact, in a retail ecosystem, in an ERP ecosystem, different ecosystems. In order to integrate in the ecosystems, it's fundamental that they have programming APIs inside these systems. In GeneXus, we didn't have a language. We could consume APIs and expose them, but we didn't have a way, for example, for a first-level citizen inside a knowledge base. So we have been working on a declarative language to expose and evolve the business with APIs. Alejandro Paniza is going to tell you more in this regard about this language. Then we have artificial intelligence at the edge in the user experience, go up to the data layer. But as we just showed with Mad Max, is that the data have moved to the edge, and also artificial intelligence has gone to the edge. So you'll see that in artificial intelligence, we are not going to be consumers of these suppliers in the cloud only. We will be able to deliver models to the cloud and run them at the edge in the devices, Android, iPhone, etc. That's what's at the edge. We have been working on this and will continue working. Now, one of the most complex things we have to adapt to is that the ways in which companies work has changed. This is a problem for everyone in the industry, and that is why the low-code category has become relevant. The model of dividing the teams in specialists is costly and slow. We used to have a model in which we separated those who knew something about UI, then BA, and then data layer. We could make this separation. To give you an example of a project, it could be like this, but it's not divided in three specialities. In the UI, we could have someone who knows about React or many programs, or someone from the Android or native channel, and in the business logic, it could be someone who knows how to integrate with a natural language processor, or how to integrate with the Open API or others. And for the data layer, they can be using different kinds of data sources. So this is a problem in the industry at the moment. And if we think that at the moment we are creating distributed systems, it's clear that the architectures have changed too. And we hear now about microservices, which is good. But now, instead of having a team, I have n number of teams. And the problem I used to have, my issue, was an n numbers issue. So with GeneXus developers, now we have full stack developers, and really full stack. This is a word that you hear often. People who say we're looking for a full stack developer, but they mean someone who knows something about JavaScript and everything from down there, but not someone who is familiar with all the channels, all of the data sources. So in GeneXus, we have full stack developers that really know how to go from a single experience to a multiple experience, and from enterprise solutions to ecosystem solutions. So now I'm going to give the floor to Armin Bachmann and Berta, who are going to tell you about the concrete things we have been doing in GeneXus. Thank you, Gaston. Good morning to all. Gaston has told you about many interesting things that we have in the radar. Armin and I are going to tell you about the novelties in GeneXus. Okay, let's start with what happened last year in GX28. There was a big moment for us because we released GeneXus 16. But not only the IDE, we released the whole suite, the various editions, for example, GeneXus for SAP, and the various products, GeneXus Server, our suite for BPM, which is a flow, also the solution for testing. So it was a complete release of the whole suite, which happened during the event. But not only the products that were developed directly by us that were ready in this opportunity. Also, all our platform partners showed the products that they offered to the community. They were already at the moment, and for us, it was an important milestone that happened during the GeneXus 28. Another important thing that we announced during the GX28 was that we were changing the way in which we were making the versions. We did no longer have a roadmap for things we would release 2 years from that point. Gustavo Carriquiri, for example, will tell you that we needed fast reactions. So we started working, or we were working already with scenarios. And once we have solved a scenario, we make it available. Because of this change in the way of generating the versions, we told you that GeneXus 16 was an upgrade of version 15, and we committed to releasing upgrades every 2 months. How will you do? Well, very well, I think. The feedback we received from our customers was very good. They were able to update their products and work with the latest technology. They could proceed to GeneXus 16 and follow the rhythm of advance of the technology. So the feedback was very good. But looking at the figures, we also see that we fulfilled the promise. Up to now, we have released 5 upgrades, and the 6th one is coming. And we released new functionalities in each one according to the advances that were required by you, among others, and your projects. And this adds up to more than 230 functionalities at the moment, a new one for each one of the days in which we have worked on this. With regard to GeneXus 16, we are going to see a lot about it in this meeting. There will be many presentations about each one of the main components of GeneXus 16, and after this one, I'm going to give you an overview of everything we have been doing in GeneXus 16. Now, when you make such fast programs as an engineer, you know that you will be asked about quality. And how did we do with regard to quality? Well, quality is something on which we focus in GeneXus. A few years ago, we started implementing DevOps practices. We started with continuous integration, and now we have continuous improvement, and you see all of the processes on the screen. They are automated now, both for the preview line, which is generated by each one of the ad brace, and for the beta line. This is a process that is run daily. And during this last year, we have been focusing on this test step. Now we have about 4,000 test scenarios that are already configured, and each one tests about 5 GeneXus features. And when we talk about releasing, what we do is executing in each run where these 4,000 tests are executed and draw up an average. Those that had an error has to be under 1% for us to start considering that the version is possible to be released as an upgrade. Why? Because an upgrade is a version. As we said, it is a version maybe smaller, but it has to have a certain stability. All the time we are adopting improvements in the robots process. It took us some time to execute this continuous delivery, but another interesting thing is that with this test system, we have become much more confident in order to separate GeneXus in components. Some time ago, we said that our code was monolithic and we had only one repository with the IDE and other components, but now we can start separating them, supported by all these tests that tell us what is the state of each one. And since this is a path that we will all have to travel, for those of you who want to start, well, how should you do it? This is not a change that can be implemented from one day to the next. We continue working, but we want to recommend two presentations that are going to discuss how to start. And then in the program, we can start finding others that are going to analyze the matter more in depth. In this way, we are building the versions. And as my colleague said, there are some things that we can expect from the coming upgrades. There are several presentations which talk about the state of the art, as Gustavo Carriquiri said. It's the things that the GeneXus team has in the radar, novelties with regard to the platforms and their possible impact on GeneXus, what we are doing already, and these presentations are going to give you further details. And don't forget that we have a beta channel that is working directly on development. That is where the scenario starts to be solved. In this channel, a feature matures. So there's development, then there is a test, the feedback from the beta tester, and once a scenario has been solved, we move the result towards the preview channel to be released in the following upgrade of the version. But we have two new things to tell you about. Right, we have been working this year on GeneXus M, which is a new IDE. It's multi-platform, it can be executed in Macs, it's a light IDE, and besides that, it's dark. We have been working a lot on this IDE, and we did open a lab in this meeting where you will be able to test it and see the new features by yourselves. Germán Asís is going to tell you more, as well as José Lamas, who will tell you how GeneXus M is included in the strategy of the GeneXus platform. Second announcement.
Our second announcement, the Angular generator that Gaston Milano has just introduced. We are launching an early adopter program for the Angular generator. This is an invitation for those of you who have an iOS and Android application, and come up and just with one click you can generate this Angular generator. We believe it's possible. We've been able to do it with GX29 application. We've been able to, in the same way we had it for iOS and Android, and we were able to generate it for Angular. I think that you can also do it. So the early adopter program is now launched. Please come up and build that solution together. That's the second announcement. Let's go to the third announcement. Anna, please. Well, perhaps someone looking at the screen in detail, you've seen the word Ginham, and this platform is going to use this platform to divide and separate in components. We're going to publish some things in GitHub. Some of them are the standard Java code XYU, and it's a platform where the code is easily shared. You can see what we are working on, because we are working on these projects directly. If you go in, you'll be able to see the improvements we've been working on in the Java standard class, and it's going to come out in the next upgrade. Everything we publish in GitHub will be used through a licensing of Apache 2.0. We started with a Java standard class, and they're practically ready. And we have several releases, one of Android, and also with the standard class of the other generators. Very well, so this is our focus, to work together, to move faster, and to have a higher quality code, and also to fulfill that promise that our code executing in your solutions isn't secret. So this is an invitation to all the builders of this community to continue building together. And once again, we give the floor back to Nicolás. My friends, just to conclude my keynote speech, one further thought about builders. This is what we are, and this is what our community is. To recognize what you are is important, but another thing is to think about the advantages we derive from it. One of the things that it gives us is that it focuses us. It makes us be focused. We live in a world where everything happens, and it's very easy to lose your track. But if our function is to build something, we're going to be focused, but going to use technology because it's useful for what we are building, and that's our mechanism. This event is content-based. We've got over 170 lectures. If you ask me why I would like to be here for 3 days, well, it's because after 3 days, we're going to be better builders. Thank you. My friends, after my keynote, I would like to make a comment. Perhaps some of you asked me why Breogán Gonda is not sitting down there on the first row. The reason why he isn't here with us is because a malign tumor was detected about 3 months ago. He immediately started treatment abroad. Fortunately, his response was wonderful. And in fact, at present, it can't even be detected. He wasn't allowed to be here these first days, but he's been authorized to be here on Wednesday. He's going to be making his speech on Wednesday, and I want to greet him and send him our best greetings from here because I know he's watching. Thank you.